Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Way too much to do. I don't know how in the world we're going to get all through this in a day. I want to do edge rushers today, but we also have a little bit of news and notes, so I'm going to talk as fast as I possibly can to get through the bullcrap news and notes. It doesn't really matter. John Fitzpatrick is a Packer again. Who cares? Okay, moving on. Packers had a meeting with linebacker Isaiah Simmons, who's selected number 8 overall by the Cardinals and spent the last 2 seasons with the Giants, a linebacker-safety hybrid. Simmons has appeared in 34 games since 2023, making just 5 starts. He totaled 71 tackles, tackle for loss, 1 interception, 5 pass breakups over the span, but he played his career-low 181 defensive snaps last season. Simmons would be 27 at the start of next season, but has struggled to live up to the potential that made him a top draft pick 6 years ago. Wherever he lands next will likely be a 1-year prove-it deal as a role player. Believe what it says, by the way, when it says that, because what we all like to do when we hear that is, oh, Isaiah Simmons. I remember when he was a top pick, and everybody said he's a freak, and we might get a freak, and then we're going to have freaks, and it's going to be amazing. He's been terrible as a football player. He was never good. I never liked the freaking guy. I never understood what was so special about him, other than, he can play by the way, linebacker safety hybrid. No, he's not a linebacker safety hybrid. He's a tweener who can't do either very well. But what we heard at the time is he could literally play any position. He could play linebacker, safety, corner, or edge rusher. Maybe not defensive tackle. They said he could do all of those things. Turns out he could do none of them. Is it possible he comes to Green Bay? Sure. Is it possible he comes to Green Bay and plays a small role in this defense and actually excels? Of course it's possible. But we are 700,000 steps away from that being a reality. Moving on. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports the Dolphins and cornerback Jalen Ramsey are exploring trade options. Jalen Ramsey is 30 years old right now. He's still playing pretty good football. 2023 wasn't great. It looks like he was injured that year, though. Over his career, when he's played, let's say, a full season, we'll call it 1,000 snaps, 73, 91, 72. These are his PFF grades. 77, 84, 86, and last year 77. So he hasn't completely fallen off, although that's certainly coming. And if you look at it week to week, very, very inconsistent. So, for example, weeks 11 through 16, 65, 63, 48, 43, 64, 56. His 77 grade is comprised of mostly average to bad games with 5 games in the 70s, 1 in the 80s, 1 in the 90s. So he's very inconsistent, but overall is, I guess, doing a pretty good job. He's also playing a ton from the slot right now, so there's that, I guess. The concern that I saw was arising is, does this complicate things with the Jair trade? And of course the answer to some degree is yes. I don't know to what degree, but to some degree is yes, because if you're already having a real hard time finding somebody, the introduction of even one more corner could complicate that. If there was a massive market of people that wanted him, it wouldn't really move the needle very much, but it doesn't seem to be that that's the case. And then Shedeur Sanders, and I found this very interesting. Sports Illustrated Albert Breer reports more than one person said to me that if Sanders goes in the first round, it'll be because an owner got involved. Meaning, nobody thinks this guy's a first-round talent. And it would only be if an owner, the obvious implication here being somebody who doesn't actually understand evaluation and doesn't want to allow the evaluators to do their job properly and want to force the issue. That is the contention of multiple people right now. What I'm really getting from Shedeur Sanders, and is probably even more exaggerated because of who he is, who his dad is, I'm getting Malik Willis vibes from this, and I don't think he falls anywhere near as much as Malik Willis did, but there was a weird thing that happened with Malik Willis where there was this weird push and pull between this guy's not good and shouldn't go in the first round, and this guy should go number 1 overall. And this sort of weird outrage of how dare you imply that this man is not good. You're just trying to slander his name because of who he is and how he plays and all this stuff. And it's like, no. All due respect to Malik Willis, but what happened? Not only did he fall, but he was right for falling. He should not have been a number 1 overall pick. There's no argument for that whatsoever. So there are these groups of people that come out and they how dare you besmirch this man's good name? He absolutely is great and elite, and you're just a hater. And it's like, okay, well, The same haters are saying Cam Ward is going to go number 1 overall and don't seem to have any problem with that, which seems weird if it's just sort of a slander campaign of some sort. Seems to me just reasonable talent evaluators are saying he should not be in the same conversation, and that even more talent evaluators in the NFL seem to think that he should not go in the first round. And interestingly enough, I saw this shortly after. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports Shedeur Sanders will, on Thursday, hold one last private workout to representatives from the Giants. And I thought, well, that's kind of an odd thing to come immediately after, is this he shouldn't go in the first round sentiment right next to the team that holds an extremely high pick is taking a really close look at him, until it dawned on me they also have a very early second round pick. And so this could absolutely be, and in fact, we should say they're not going to draft Shedeur Sanders in the first round. We should kind of know that at this point and realize that if the Giants are looking very closely, what they're potentially doing is trying to determine, should we maybe trade up back into the first round to make sure that we can secure him, which would kind of technically make him a first-round pick, although it's probably has more to do with them saying we want to use our second-round pick on him, but just want to make sure that we are the ones that get him because somebody else might jump up or whatever the case may be. But that's probably what this is. The Giants are trying to make a determination on if they should make a move for him or if they should maybe draft him in the second round should he fall. But I don't think this is a very serious question of should we take him at 3. I just don't think that's what's happening right now. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and people seem to be inferring that from this situation. But when you couple it with all the rest of the information, and listen, maybe I'm wrong because the Giants are shockingly desperate for a quarterback, and maybe they don't want to just let it pass them by. Maybe they're trying to talk themselves into it because they just want it to be a thing so badly because they don't have a quarterback. But again, that kind of falls into the owner thing / GM trying not to lose his job, as opposed to somebody who had job security and just wanted to build for the long term. Because remember, GMs don't have long-term security. They have short-term security. Drafting a bad quarterback isn't going to help you, but in the, let's say, 10% chance or 5% chance this guy ends up being a stud, he could save your entire career and lock you up as a GM for many, many, many years. So we'll see, but it's a very odd thing that's happening between he's a great player, you don't know what you're talking about, he's going to go early, and this guy's not a first-round pick duality that's going on. All right, so moving on to edge rusher here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to try to get through, which means I'm going to have to try to go a little bit faster. I'm going to do the same thing we did yesterday. If you didn't listen to it, please go back and listen to it. But essentially, I'm going to watch all of them. I'm going to give sort of my final evaluation. The goal for me is more so to try to understand the vision as opposed to just giving a pass-fail, trying to find those rare occasions of people that I absolutely love, because we're not going to draft the people I love. And so we're going to draft somebody, and I want to make sure that that's somebody I at least understand what we're going for here. Also, having gone through the corners yesterday and the edges, it just becomes more and more evident to me that edge is significantly more likely than corner. I just think, first of all, watching them, none of them really blew me away. There's so many questions. And then just look at things like age. All the corners have, they're old and or have massive injury issues. There is one guy, Umani-Yellen? He just turned 23 years old. That is the oldest guy of the group. There are 2 that are 22 years old. Everyone else is under 22 of the 11, with 2 of them that are still in their 20s, or still 20, not yet 21, I guess is the way to say it. So they're much younger. I think there's a lot less injury issues. There might be some off-the-field stuff or whatever, or character stuff or whatever, but they're just a lot less red flags here, from height and weight and 40 time and size and age and RAS. I mean, about half of them don't even have an RAS, but the lowest RAS score of the group that I do have is an 8.14, which is really good. and it goes all the way up to a 10 out of 10, which is Shamar Stewart. So there's so many of them compared to the corners, and there's so many guys that just check a lot of boxes. But starting from the bottom, and again, I'm just trying to make sure that we cover all the potential who they could possibly draft type of players. And so most of these guys, really, really unlikely that the Packers would draft them in the first round. But I just don't want to rule anything out. I don't want to just cut corners. So I took all of the guys that are in the first or second round conversation. So we'll start with Jack Sawyer of Ohio State. My initial thought on, I guess my final thought on Jack Sawyer is, can I see the vision? Yes, I can. Do I think he has a high ceiling? I do not. The thing I like the most about Sawyer is he showed some real burst and quickness. When you watch at the snap how deep he gets into the backfield compared to the rest of the line or the guy on the other side, he can really fire off. He also showed quite a bit of bend, which was interesting. It's kind of a question of seeing it, but then also what can you do from that position? It's one thing to be able to bend. It's another thing to be able to bend and still kind of push through it to be able to drive toward the quarterback, as opposed to like, I'm bending, but I can't really move from this position. But I did see it there. Biggest issue I have with Jack Sawyer is he's not a man mover. I watched him against Texas, which is a bowl game, maybe his best game of the season. He did some good stuff. He's certainly quick. His ability to kind of like do these little hop jumps. And the one of the cool things, I rewound it like 5 times because I wanted to go watch it again, is it was actually a running play, but he did this real quick hop and then bend to get around the guy to get to the running back. Some real quick, shifty agility type stuff that was very intriguing with Jack Sawyer, but he absolutely gets stuck. It's either I beat you with this move or I didn't, and that's kind of the end of it. He played mostly on the left side, so up against Cameron Williams. I would have liked to see him more on the other side with the top tackle over there at Texas, but there's still another solid tackle over there on the right side. And I didn't really see him move the guy at all. He either got around him, which was so much chipping and all this other stuff that's going on. It's hard to find like a clean mano-a-mano. It's the nature of the trenches. We like to think of stats in such a clean sense, but it's very rarely clean down there. It's very ugly. That's why things like true pass sets are so important, although you get a much smaller sample size to work with. But I think if you're going to do more scheme type things, he could be pretty solid. I struggle with the idea of him kind of collapsing a pocket, so to speak. But I think just a solid, decent player. Should he go in the first round as a guy that can, really dominate? I don't see that vision, but maybe if they can put together the whole package of the speed bend and speed to power and get all that stuff worked out. I also really didn't see, the ability to swipe and get the offensive tackle's hands off of him. It was an instance where the tackle had his hands on him and he grabbed the guy's wrist and nothing happened. Like he didn't, like you got to get his hand off of you. Like he just grabbing his wrist and like, get off, and it just didn't get off. So definitely outpowered, outmatched there. By the way, the Beast Draft Guide doesn't necessarily agree, although it kind of does in a way. If you look at guys who have first or second round designations, which would include second to third round, they have 14. I believe everybody that I have on this list is on their list, although there are others that are added that we're not going to talk about and not quite in the order. So the Beast has Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, Michael Williams, Donovan Izaraku, James Pierce, JT Tuimoloau, Landon Jackson, and then they have Jordan Birch, who is not on this list. Again, kind of iffy on whether he's a defensive tackle or edge, which I don't like that. I just don't like that. Then Jack Sawyer at 11. Then Nick Schorton at 12. Then Oluwafemi Oladejo is a second to third. Princely Umani-Yellen out of Ole Miss, second to third. So kind of 14 in there, and obviously the orders are all out of whack, and I don't appreciate him putting Umani-Yellen behind some of these guys at 14. That makes me very sad, but it is what it is. All right, let's see what we got for Jack Sawyer here. Played for Jim Knowles' four-man front, so he's got familiarity with what the Packers are doing. described as cold-blooded with steely-eyed focus by former Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. Welcomes high expectations. NFL scouts say he changed his diet and was in the best shape of his career in 2024. That's all good stuff. Positive presence in the locker room, voted 2024 team captain. NFL scouts said he's the clear leader in that D-line room. That's all great stuff. Didn't miss a game in his 4 seasons in Columbus, including 29 straight starts. That's huge. I mean, those positives by themselves would make me real excited about him as a second-round pick. Didn't miss any time in college, but suffered a torn left MCL during the last game of his junior year of high school, which required surgery. He has an older sister, Kyla, was born and raised outside of Columbus, Ohio, with his parents Lyle and Michelle. Lyle, all-state wrestler in high school, spurned a walk-on offer from Ohio State to be a starting linebacker Division II Finlay. Achilles injury ended his playing days. Michelle was a McDonald's All-American basketball player at Pickerington High School before becoming All-American forward at Bowling Green. She was the MAC tournament MVP in 1994 and averaged 16.8 points per game as a senior, later played overseas in Europe. Jack's grandfather, Michelle's father, played in the Pittsburgh Pirates minor league system. Sawyer played multiple sports through childhood, including soccer, baseball, basketball. He started playing football in second grade, but competed against fifth graders. His father was one of the coaches. He came up through the PYAA, played both sides of the ball, usually running back and middle linebacker. 5-star recruit, third-ranked defensive lineman in the 2021 class, number 1 recruit in Ohio, 5th-ranked recruit nationally behind Quinn Ewers, Corey Foreman, J.C. Latham, and future Buckeyes teammate J.T. Tuimoloau. He was also considered a high-profile basketball recruit and started to receive Division I offers as a freshman, but teams backed off when he made it known that football was his future. After his freshman year of high school, Sawyer took several recruiting visits and picked up offers from Kentucky, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State. His childhood bedroom was painted in Buckeyes colors, though, and he dreamed of playing at Ohio State. He visited Columbus on April 2018, but did not expect an immediate offer because Ohio State rarely offered in-state freshmen. But Urban Meyer made an exception for Sawyer and offered him on the spot. That's pretty big. Meyer offered his retirement 2018 season, but didn't deter Sawyer, who had developed a relationship with Ryan Day and officially committed in February 2019. Sawyer declined his invitation to the Senior Bowl because of Ohio State's deep playoff run. He enrolled at Ohio State 2021, honorable mention All-Big Ten, led team in sacks in 2022, third-team All-Big Ten, led the team in tackles for a loss in sacks in 2023, and second-team All-Big Ten, led team in forced fumbles, 11-yard fumble return, 83-yard fumble return for a touchdown, Cotton Bowl defensive MVP, and team captain in 2024. So a lot of positives with Jack Sawyer. Again, I don't see a path to this elite dominant pass rusher, but maybe. It's really just got to be a refining of the tools and exploring that sort of athleticism that he seems to have and developing that. Again, based on everything here, would I be happy if we took him in the second round? I think so. Next, shoot. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and start seeing what we can do here. We'll be right back. All right, Lee Umani-Yellen, Mississippi, 6'4", 244. That's one of his knocks. 4'7", 240, 161, 10-yard split, which is actually, it's kind of cool when you look at the 10-yard splits because his 40 time was the second slowest behind Michael Williams, but his 10-yard split was faster than Landon Jackson's, who had a faster 40 time. So he's got a little bit more explosion and short area speed, which matters more than running 40 yards. But he is the 23-year-old. He just turned 23, but he is the oldest of the group at 23, which isn't great. He had an 8.99 RAS, so basically a 9. Got plenty of athleticism. The other thing that could certainly be considered a knock is the fact that he is what is he, 244-pound outside linebacker. I don't know if that sort of disqualifies you as being a, especially first-round pick, but being a down defensive end for Jeff Hafley in his 4.3. Do you want to take that risk? I don't know. As for my thoughts, I'm pretty torn. I do see more upside than Sawyer. I also see more downside. He seems a little bit more, I don't know if reckless is the right word, but so for example, I watched him against Georgia first. It was his best game in 2024, arguably, and he's having a lot of success, but a couple issues I had. First of all, the tackles at Georgia were pretty terrible. The interior is fine, the tackles are not good. And they got this big, oversized, not very nimble guy, and the one move he continually used was to use his speed to get around him and then dip his shoulder real low. So as the tackle's trying to, not only get back, he's also got to lean forward to try to like push him. And he struggled to execute that. A couple times he hit him in the back and just made him look stupid and fall to the ground. There just wasn't much to it. But then there was also a time where he kind of used some power, got inside the guy's chest, knocked him back, and then got around him. But I was like, all right, let's see if we can find something better. So I went to 2023 against LSU. They got 2 really good tackles. He still had like 7 pressures in the game. And it's great because you can see the tenacity. Despite being a smaller guy, unlike Sawyer, he doesn't really get stuck. He's kind of you give me enough time, I'm going to get there. One way or another. He's a wiry little guy that'll, you watch the tackles and they're falling all over themselves just trying to keep this guy away. But there are other times when a tight end will blow him off the field. So I think he's a scrappy dude that can probably rack up some stats, but also when he's not having positive plays, he's having a significant number of negative plays. So I like him. I don't know if he's a great fit for the Packers. I think his size is going to cause him problems at times, especially when you move to the NFL ranks where everybody's pretty big and also has a solid amount of athleticism. Finding guys like that Georgia tackle in the NFL is really just not a thing. Guys like that probably aren't even going to make it to the pros, much less even being a backup or a starter. Even the bad NFL tackles were probably superstars in college. So I would say first and foremost, I would be surprised if we draft him. If we did, certainly plenty of upside to get excited about, but I don't think it's going to happen. 1-year starter at Ole Miss, Umani-Yellen was a stand-up boundary edge rusher, mostly on passing downs and defensive coordinator Pete Golding's 4-2-5 base scheme. Umani-Yellen's 4th different defensive coordinator in 5 years. After starting 2 seasons as a 4-eye defensive end and edge rusher at Florida, he was a hot commodity in the transfer portal and played his best football with the Rebels during the 2024 season, setting a career best with 10.5 sacks. Only Kyle Kennard had more sacks in the SEC. Led his team in sacks each of the past 3 seasons, 10.5 in 2024, second most in a season in Rebels history. Missed 2 games with a high left ankle sprain in 2024 and underwent shoulder surgery during the 2024 season. Lost his cool after November 2024 loss to Florida, his former team, and had to be restrained from an off-field altercation with Gators fans. NFL scout said, "I hope he convinces us during the process that his emotional maturity and buy-in are things we don't need to worry about." So more red flags. Not only is he a hothead, but when you talk about going after fans, now you're talking about guys like Quay and Wyatt who are going after trainers and whatnot, Umani-Yellen, the second of 4 boys, was born in Lagos, Nigeria. Before his parents moved the family to the United States, they initially settled in New York, then relocated to Austin, Texas, where Princely was in elementary school. His parents own and operate Lady T Kitchen African restaurant in Pflugerville, Texas. Umani-Yellen, who grew up 15 miles from Texas's campus, started playing at age 9. His older brother, Prince, that's hilarious, there's Prince and Princely, was a defensive end at FCS Tarleton State before transferring to Division II East Central for the last 2 seasons. Younger brother, come on. So their first son was Prince. They had another son and named him Princely. Then their third son they named Prince Will. Okay. Signed with Matt Rule as one of the top recruits in Nebraska's 2023 class, but entered the transfer portal after the 2024 season and enrolled at Ole Miss following a similar path to his brothers. Interesting. He also lettered in track and nearly broke Manner's all-time record in the shot put. That was the high school he went to. 4-star recruit, Umani-Yellen was the 9th-ranked strong-side defensive end in the 2020 recruiting class, number 38 recruit in Texas. His recruitment started to take off after his sophomore year, including major offers from Arkansas, Oklahoma, TCU before his junior season. Despite rooting for LSU, Miami, and Oregon throughout his childhood, he initially committed to nearby Texas just before his senior year. However, he changed his mind after 2 months and reopened recruitment. Texas stayed in the picture. Baylor was thought to be the front runner until Rule left for the NFL. Umani-Yellen said, "Rule is the realest coach I've ever met. Florida was late to the party. Umani-Yellen wanted to play in the SEC to have the most possible exposure to NFL teams and signed with the Gators. He was a 15th recruit in Florida's 2020 class. After 4 seasons in Gainesville, took advantage of an extra year eligibility NCAA because of COVID, entered the transfer portal, went to Ole Miss, saying he was actually developed by the Rebels coaching staff. He accepted his invitation to the Senior Bowl. 2020 pandemic-shortened season, enrolled in June of 2020. First career start came in a bowl game in 2021. He led the team in sacks and tackles for a loss in 2022. Second team All-SEC, led the team in sacks and tackles for a loss in 2023. In 2024 at Ole Miss, he was second team All-American, first team All-SEC, led the team in sacks, had a fumble return touchdown, and missed 2 games due to an ankle injury. At 52 overall on the consensus board, JT Tuimoloau, also from Ohio State, like Jack Sawyer, almost exact same height and weight as Jack Sawyer, 6'4", 264. He has bigger hands and longer arms and is younger, 21.96 years old, and has a 9.34 RAS. My thoughts on Tuimoloau: he is a perfect complement to Sawyer. Everything that Sawyer is, he isn't. Everything he is, Sawyer isn't. He is much less agile, but much stronger. I'm struggling to determine between the two. I mean, I like Sawyer more than Tuimoloau just based on what I saw. But in terms of upside, I could see an argument for JT Tuimoloau being, less likely to be completely shut out. So so I watched him against Texas again because it's a pretty good game for him as well. It was his second highest pass rush grade, which he doesn't have very good pass rush grades to begin with, which I'm not super surprised by. But also because Texas has good tackles. On the left side, they have Kelvin Banks, who's going to be a first-round pick. On the right side, they have Cameron Williams. Now, Cameron Williams is the lesser tackle, and Sawyer went up against him, so it's a little bit unfair. And I'll say this, the almost the entire game, Tuimoloau was up against Kelvin Banks. Every time he wasn't against Kelvin Banks, he looked really impressive. He went over by Cam Williams once and got an immediate sack. Used that power to get up inside his chest, push him straight back into the quarterback. Now, the quarterback had to try to step. He had 2 sacks in the game. Both times the quarterback didn't have anything, tried to step up into the pocket, and that's how he got him. There were other instances where he had to go up against a guard. The one time there's a blitz coming to his side, so the Kelvin Banks picks up the blitz. He moves in, the guard picks him up, and he's able to push back, and I don't think he got a sack, but he got a pressure. There was a pulling guard on a run play. He was able to jump around the guard and get to the running back. A rare display of some decent agility there to get around him. The problem is every rep that I watched him against Kelvin Banks, he got erased. Kelvin Banks, 86 overall, 81 run blocking, 90 pass blocking grade. He's a very good tackle. He got erased. He couldn't use his power. He couldn't use his speed that he doesn't have. He couldn't set the edge. He couldn't do anything. I think the one encouraging rep is very similar to Sawyer, the time he tried to grab the wrist and rip it and he couldn't even move the guy's hand. There was a rep against Kelvin Banks with JT Tuimoloau where he did grab the guy's wrist and rip it, and he almost got past him. That was the first time he kind of shook up Banks a little bit. So I wonder if he's got the strength to be able to be taught some new tools and possibly be used in that way. I don't really know, but I struggle quite a bit with the vision. But again, it's very similar to Sawyer. It's just the opposite side of the same coin. He's got the exact opposite concerns and the exact opposite upside. Absolutely no desire for him in the first round, maybe second round. Anything after that, I think, would be perfectly fine. Tuimoloau is 8 on the big board over here. 3-year starter for Jim Knowles, 4-man front, primarily in a 2-point crouched stance. Highest ranked recruit ever to sign in Columbus. He never reached the Bosa brothers or Chase Young level of pass rusher for the Buckeyes, but his flashes evolved into consistent production. Says he is one of the most well-rounded defensive prospects in the class, according to him. Consistently battles through minor injuries, played in all 55 games over the past 4 seasons, including 35 straight starts. Again, that's big. I really appreciate that from both the Ohio State guys, the fact that they are very consistent. And that's another thing to consider. Not all, when you hear some of the stuff you can't play. If you have to be shut down because you have a torn labrum and you need surgery or whatever, you're not going to play through that. But there is an element of some guys, when you hear that they didn't miss any time due to injuries, it's not because they're not injured. It's because they're freaking tough and they fight through it and they play. And I think that's a lot of the friction that's going on with some of the guys in Green Bay who are like, I'm not playing, I'm hurt. And it's like, okay, well, I think you could, but okay. Jalen Tuimoloau, slight correction there. Jalen, also known as JT, Tuimoloau, Samoan descent, grew up outside of Seattle with his mother Alofa and father Ponce de Leon. That is hilarious. Felatoy. Ponce de Leon, that's pretty good. His mother and aunt played basketball at Moore Park Community College. His younger sister, Zaria Lee, just completed her sophomore season playing college basketball at St. Mary's. Multi-sport athlete like they all are. Picked up youth football and later starred for FBU Seattle. Coached by 14-year NFL veteran defensive lineman Sam Adams. Tuimoloau led FBU Seattle to back-to-back championships. Throughout high school, Tuimoloau trained at Ford Sports Performance with Tracy Ford and several former Seahawks players, including Cliff Averill and Bobby Wagner. 5-star recruit, second-ranked defensive lineman behind Corey Foreman in the 2021 recruiting class, number 1 recruit in Washington, ahead of Emeka Ibuka. 4th-ranked player overall in the class, 24th-ranked recruit all-time in composite rankings. No shortage of offers from around the country, narrowed it down to Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Washington. Because of the 15th-month recruiting dead period implemented because of the pandemic, he decided not to sign December 2020 or February 2021 signing days in order to take more visits in spring and summer. After his trips to Columbus, he said he felt like home, officially committed to the Buckeyes in July 2021, becoming the highest-ranked defensive recruit in program history. Random fact, he has never seen a horror movie. He declined his invitation to the Senior Bowl after Ohio State's deep playoff run. All right, this is very obviously going to be a two-parter. We'll take a break. We'll come back and do Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. We'll be right back. Landon Jackson's one of the more intriguing guys because he's huge. He is 6'6", 264, ran a 4.68 40, which for his size is pretty impressive. He's got real long arms, second longest behind Ziraku. The, second longest wingspan behind Shamar Stewart. 22.3 years old, 9.78 RAS. Second highest behind Shamar Stewart. Really intriguing. My issue is that it looks like he has no idea what he's doing. He is this big, tall, long-armed guy that you assume when you watch him line up, I could absolutely see falling in love with the guy just because of his physical dimensions. He has the look of some of these guys like Bosa. He's not as built as them, but they just have this look to him like Myles Garrett, real long arms. And so you just envision what he's going to be able to do, and he doesn't use it. He just immediately plows his chest into these guys and starts pushing with his body. What the heck are you doing? And not only that, he stands straight up. At 6'6", you lose all leverage. When you're towering over some of these offensive linemen, you need to stay low and you need to extend your arms. And he doesn't do that. He just runs and plows into people and then stands up. He also has a serious problem with balance, probably because he's 6'6" and standing straight up, but he's constantly on the ground. He's getting pushed around like crazy. The vision is very easy to see. I think he could be a very good football player, with maybe some limitations. I don't really see a lot of bend there. I tried to find it. It's hard to find because, again, his mission is to just plow into, just freaking chest to chest with these guys and then try to bench press them off of him. I have no idea why that's his one move. He doesn't try to go around people. He doesn't try to use his arms to, some of these really good pass rushers, they use their long arms and they just control offensive linemen so that I can shed and go left or go right. He doesn't even try. He just runs right into him. I didn't see him try to swipe arms away. I didn't see him try to do anything. I mean, it's this weird thing of I'm going to run into you and just see what happens and then get into a fist fight with you. So, Landon Jackson could end up being a guy that you draft and say, if we could just teach this guy how to play the position, to teach him to kind of, stay low, teach him how to use his arms, teach him a couple pass rush moves, he could end up being a pretty solid football player. He's got the dimensions that not a lot of guys have. So that's the vision in my mind, It's not based on what I mean, his grades are not phenomenal. He's more of a run defender, which makes sense because his whole thing is just, I'm going to plow into you and neither of us move at that point. But very good run defense grades. The pass rush, he had a 72 pass rush grade, but only 4 games where he was in the 70s or higher. Mississippi State was a 90 grade. Everything else was 60s down to 55.9. The game I watched was against Texas A&M because of the film. The 2 games where there were actually good tackles were Texas A&M and Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State was his second worst game, so I figured I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. He only had a 63.6 grade, 2 pressures and a sack in that game, but I want to see 2 things. I want to give him the best possible game, but I also want to see against actual competent competition, and that's what I saw. He's too upright, he gets knocked around, knocked to the ground constantly, and he doesn't use a single pass rush move. He doesn't use his arms, he doesn't use leverage. He stands straight up and runs chest to chest and is like, let's see what happens. Okay, well, that's not great. But I think as far as tools, there's a lot to work with. But I hate to use the word, I think might be a little bit of a project. I don't know how long it takes to teach some of that stuff. Landon Jackson is number 9 on here, 6'6", 264, as I said, 22.31 years old. 3-year starter at Arkansas. Jackson was the buck end and defensive coordinator. Travis Williams' 4-man front. 94.6% of his snaps in 2024 came over or outside of the offensive tackle. First Razorback since Stephen Conley, 94-95, to lead the defense in tackles for a loss and sacks in back-to-back seasons. Overall, Jackson has a different type of pass rush skill set because he isn't a super fluid athlete, but his raw power, strength in his hands, and consistent effort make him effective. Blocked a pair of field goals over the past 3 seasons. Again, the height probably doesn't hurt. 2-year team captain and a positive influence in the building. An NFL scout said, I love how he doesn't get obsessed with his own stats. He just wants to win and impact the game. That's very good. Suffered 2 season-ending injuries in high school, an ACL injury in 2018, broken ankle in 2020, retore the ACL after arriving at LSU, which limited him during the 2021 season and required surgery, sat out 2022 spring practice at Arkansas, suffered a neck injury the final game November 2024, and was carted off the field and taken to a nearby hospital for precautionary reasons. None of that is great. One of 4 kids, born and raised in Texarkana, Texas. Close with his mother, Katie Peak, and father, Larry Jackson. Katie played college volleyball at McNeese State and redshirted her sophomore year while she was pregnant with Landon. Larry, who stands 6'11", played basketball at Texas A&M before transferring to McNeese State, where he met Katie. Larry played professionally in Germany and is now an engineering technician. Landon's younger brother, Lance, is a 5-star defensive line recruit in the 25 class and signed with Texas. At age 4, Landon was diagnosed with alopecia, an autoimmune disease that causes hair loss. He's open about his struggles, being bullied growing up, and now serves as an advocate for kids battling the condition. He played every sport he could throughout childhood, including baseball, basketball, soccer. He started playing football at age 7, usually played up a grade or 2 because of his size, and because that's what his older brother did. In 5th grade, he moved to Gilmore, Texas. With his mother, he returned to Texarkana, moved in with his father before 8th grade for better football opportunities. 4-star letterman in Pleasant Grove High School. Senior season cut short by the broken ankle. Also known for his dunking ability at Pleasant Grove basketball team. Started dunking in 7th grade. 4-star recruit, Jackson was the 8th-ranked edge defender in the 21 recruiting class, number 19 recruit in Texas. Part of Pleasant Grove graduating class that included several FBS recruits, including Nick Martin, Oklahoma State, Marcus Burris Jr., Texas A&M, transferred to Indiana. Jackson received his first scholarship offer from Texas A&M January 18 after his breakout freshman season. Over the next few years, he collected more than 30 FBS offers, narrowed down his options to Alabama, Arkansas, LSU, Miami, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, and Washington. A few months later, LSU won the national championship. Jackson committed to head coach Ed Orgeron. In 2020, he was a 10th-ranked recruit in LSU's 21 class, 2 spots ahead of Malik Neighbors, and graduated early. After an injury-riddled freshman season in Baton Rouge and turnover on LSU coaching staff, he entered the portal, rebuffed a lot of calls from other schools because he knew he wanted to play at Arkansas, a program close to home he'd strongly considered out of high school. He opted out of Arkansas's 24 bowl game and accepted his Senior Bowl invitation. All right, let's get to a guy that I'm a big fan of. Umani-Yellen I liked, whatever. Nick Schorton, Texas A&M, 40 on the consensus board. 6'2.5", 257. Doesn't have an RAS, didn't run the 40, none of that stuff. He is the youngest at 20.66 years old. So my thing with Nick Schorton, and I think I'll probably take him down a peg from the first time I watched him through. If I had to guess, I would guess that I watched him against Arkansas. I try to do the same thing as I did before. Find his best game against good offensive linemen. The best game that I have film for is against Arkansas, but their offensive tackles are bad. LSU was his third best game of the season, just one behind Arkansas. Still had 6 pressures and a sack. Phenomenal, one of his best games of the season, but better tackles. And so you're still going to see him against better tackles. So that's why I'm guessing this is not the game I watched of him. But look, I still like him. I love his speed. He kind of reminds me of Sawyer if Sawyer had much better ability to have speed through his turns. I don't want to call it bend because it's not necessarily bend. I don't know that he has that. I didn't see it a ton. Maybe that's what people mean by bend. That's not what I mean by bend. But his ability to get around a corner and not decelerate, or to still have some speed. Obviously, you would decelerate to some degree, but he seems to have that ability. He also is very good, because he has that speed and agility, he can speed to the outside and then hop to the inside. Like he can really put these guys in a bit of a blender here. The biggest issue that I'm having with Schorton is that he doesn't really play like a bigger dude. He was initially listed as huge, which is maybe another reason why I really liked him. PFF had him at 285, so I'm expecting a 285 guy to not be able to move, and he's flying around. He weighed in at 257, which is significantly smaller. That's 30 pounds lighter than what PFF had him listed at. It's also about 2 inches or an inch and a half shorter. Not sure they're even talking about the same person. I don't know if there's 2 Nick Schortons or what. But he's certainly big enough to be able to handle himself, so maybe it's more of a technique thing. But you could see him kind of get treated like a small man once in a while, like some of the 240, 250-pound guys can kind of get swallowed up. So it's sort of like a lot of the speed guys. Either I beat you with the speed, or I kind of just get stuck. Now, there is still speed to power and all that stuff, which you see some of these smaller guys have. Like, Jalen Walker is 243. He's the smallest. He's 6'1", 243. But, man, he can just pop some of these guys because you get that speed going. And if you know how to convert that into power, you can really knock these guys back. And some of them have that, and it, takes away some of the concerns. So I absolutely see the vision for Schorton. I like Schorton, and I think he's got some room to grow as well, being like 260 pounds and still having a good amount of speed to him. But again, I would probably just knock him down a half a peg from where I had him before, where I was blown away, which again is probably a combination of watching him against bad tackles and expecting to see a 6'4", 285-pound guy and watching him fly around the field as though he's, 257. He's listed as 12th on his list, 59th overall on the big board. 1-year starter at A&M. Schorton lined up primarily as an edge rusher, 5 or 7 technique in Mike Elko's 4-man front. He is listed primarily as an outside linebacker for Texas A&M via PFF, but he did do a lot of hand-in-the-dirt stuff, so he's not certainly not exclusive. Productive for a loaded Aggies defensive line, leading the team in sacks and tackles for a loss. He has an aggressive worker bee play style, which should translate to starting snaps in the NFL. Earned captain status as a sophomore at Purdue, quickly ingrained himself in the Texas A&M culture, led both Big Ten team and SEC team in sacks over the past 2 seasons, one of the youngest players in the entire draft class, another thing I really like about him. Has some bad weight on his frame, which may have already been taken care of if he's down to 257. Oh boy. Nick Teedrick is his real name, goes by Nick Schorton, formerly Nick Caraway. I don't understand. One of 3 children, grew up in Timpson in East Texas with his mother, Ashley Caraway. He started playing organized football for the first time in 7th grade. As his mother worked long hours, Schorton later found himself in danger of flunking out of school. At the start of the sophomore year, his best friend, Andrew Bubar, convinced his parents to allow Schorton to live with them temporarily, but that short stay turned into much more. Nick's mother eventually signed over his guardianship to Andrew's father, Lane, the principal at Bryan High, and mother, Cindy, and Nick stayed with the Bubar family for the remainder of high school. In college, he officially changed his last name from Caraway to Schorton to reflect the best friend relationship with his biological father, Nicky Schorton. All right. Went to Bryan High, 3-year letterman, saw time on both sides of the ball. As a sophomore, he was a defensive lineman at 260, put his name on the map. Also saw snaps at running back and tight end. He dropped his weight down to 240, played more hybrid linebacker. Best season was his senior season, earned first-team All-District honors for the second straight year, scored and finished his final season with 97 tackles, also lettered in basketball. 4-star recruit, Schorton was 27th ranked defensive lineman in the 22 recruiting class, number 33 recruit in Texas. Recruiters started showing interest in him during his sophomore season, although he needed time to get his grades on the right track after moving in with the Bubar family. After his junior season, Schorton received his first offer from UTSA. Several other programs followed, including Colorado State, Memphis, and SMU. He also heard from several larger programs, but the offers didn't follow in the state, but the offers didn't follow. Meanwhile, Mark Hagan recruited Schorton while he was the defensive line coach at Texas and continued to recruit him after being named co-defensive coordinator at Purdue. Schorton committed to the Boilermakers, who ended up being his only Power 5 scholarship offer. Schorton was a top-ranked player in former head coach Jeff Brom's 22 class. After 2 seasons at West Lafayette, he entered the transfer portal and examined his options. He scheduled visits to Florida State, Missouri, Oklahoma, but after a visit to Texas A&M and an apology from Mike Elko for not offering him out of high school, Schorton was ready to return home. He has the 979 area code tattooed on his arm. Big Texas A&M fan, his father, a real estate agent, served as his NIL agent. Andrew Bubar, whom Nick Schorton calls his brother, also enrolled at Purdue for 2 years and then followed Schorton to College Station at 2024. After 1 season with the Aggies, Schorton elected to skip his senior year and enter the draft. He opted out of Texas A&M's 24 bowl game, accepted the Senior Bowl invitation, but was a late scratch. It's interesting. All right, so that is kind of, I would say, the last of the probably second-round picks, but we should talk about him just in case. Now we get to the potentially second round, probably first round, Donovan Jalon. We'll get back to how to say his name in a second on the Beast Draft Guide. In fact, let me just pull that up because I know I knew how to say it, and then I forget, and it's all that whole thing. Let me see here. What does he say? Ezaraku. Donovan Ezaraku. Got it. But Donovan Ezaraku, Boston College, 6'2.5", 248, 814 RAS, 21.5 years old. So kind of unfortunate here with Ezaraku because his grades are phenomenal. 91 pass rush grade. Almost all of his games are 70s or higher. He only had 4 games below a 70, only 2 games below a 60. 58 against Louisville and a 55.8 against SMU. 70s against North Carolina, Duquesne, Florida State, and then Virginia. 80s against Syracuse, Western Kentucky, and Michigan State, and basically a 90 against Pittsburgh. The problem is I only have 3 games of his. 2 of them are really good games for him, Pittsburgh and I think Virginia, but the tackles suck. The other game is Missouri. The tackles are quite good. That was one of his games in the 60s, a 63 pass rush grade, 56 run defense, 2 pressures, 1 sack. But I want to stick with the thing of I want to see you against competent tackles. On the right side, they have Armand Membo, who is phenomenal. I think he's primarily going to be on the other side against Marcus Bryant, but Marcus Bryant also has a 76 run blocking and 73 pass blocking. So they're good tackles. So unfortunately, this is the one I have to pick. So Ezaraku is cool, man. I mean, the fact that this is one of his worst games of the season is pretty impressive because one way to put it is I feel like he is what Landon Jackson could be. His ability to use his arms to keep people off of him and to dictate to the offensive line as opposed to being dictated to is pretty impressive. He's got a wide plethora of pass rush moves. He does all kinds of crazy stuff. He's spinning, twisting. He's constantly doing these leaps. He'll leap to the inside and then jump to the outside and swat the hand away to get around the outside. And then he'll do the opposite. He'll lunge to the outside and then jump to the inside. Again, he uses his arms to keep the guys off of him and dictate to the offensive line. He swats hands away. He's a much more developed pass rusher. Now, the problem with that is I don't know how much more room there is to grow because you're kind of seeing him at his best, as opposed to some of these other guys you look at and say, man, if they could do the things that Ezaraku is doing, then maybe they could be even better at it than him. I think that's where GMs go a lot of times and can get themselves in trouble. Coaches and GMs talk themselves into, but we could teach him to do these things as opposed to just taking the guy that's demonstrating that he can already do it. But Ezeraku, 60 pressures on 428 attempts and 14 sacks on the season. 3-year starter at Boston College, outside edge rusher, defensive coordinator Tim Lewis's 4-3 base scheme, lined up mostly as a stand-up defender with 99.7% of his snaps coming wide of the tackle as a 7 or 9 tech. There's a lot of that going on as well, as opposed to a little bit more head-to-head action. After leading the team in sacks and tackles for a loss as a sophomore and junior, became the 13th consensus All-American school history as a senior and finished top 3 in FBS in both sacks and tackles for a loss. As a pass rusher, Ezeraku is more dip and rip than he is a force player, which is true. He has NFL starter-level talent, and tape says he's more than a designated pass rusher. 2-year team captain with strong football character. Started 36 straight games before opting out of the 24 bowl game, so durable. Led FBS in sacks per game at 1.38 and took home the 2024 Ted Hendricks Award as the nation's top defensive end. Tied Boston College single-season record with 16.5 sacks and joined Matthias Kiwanuka as the only player in school history to reach 30 career sacks. He's the third of 4 boys, born in Philadelphia to 2 parents, Sonics and Cindy. Family later relocated to Williamstown, New Jersey, 20 miles south of Philly. Ezeraku got his start in Pee Wee football, also played basketball through middle school and into high school, and competed in 7-on-7. Attended Williamstown High, 4-year varsity letterman, played both ways. Wide receiver and edge rusher. Helped lead the team to a 12-0 record. Senior season disrupted by COVID-19, but finished with 47 tackles, 2 sacks, 9 games, all area honors. Played basketball as a freshman at Williamstown and lettered in track. 3-star recruit, 132nd ranked linebacker in the 21 recruiting class, number 23 recruit in New Jersey. Didn't have any recruiting stars following his junior season. Recruitment started to pick up steam with offers from FCS schools Holy Cross, Stony Brook, and Wagner, and Ivy League programs such as Harvard and Princeton. That's not a bad thing. He received his first FBS offers May 2020 from Northern Illinois, Old Dominion, and Temple, followed by his first then Power 5 offer from Boston College and Vanderbilt. He was unable to go on visits because of COVID-19, but he took a chance to commit to Boston College and head coach Jeff Hafley. Ezeraku was the 22nd ranked recruit in Hafley's 21 class. He graduated with a degree in December of 24. He opted out of Boston College 24 bowl game and accepted the invitation to the Senior Bowl. So obviously you've got that connection there as well. But I tell you what, we're about halfway done. We got James Pierce, Mike Green, Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, and Jalon Walker left to go. We'll do that tomorrow. We are running out of time, but also there's not a ton of other actual positions that we need to run through. Wide receiver and defensive line will be the other 2 big ones. Offensive line might be kind of a big one as well. Interior and tackle. So that'll be what we got. Let's just say we have just enough time. How about that? And we'll see how she goes. But obviously don't have time, and I want to make sure that we have enough for tomorrow. So we'll just leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.